Good morning. This would be kind of a react show to the short streams I filmed the other day. It was about Trump's VP, JD Vance, apparently has quite a bit of holdings in Bitcoin. He's holding it by way of the Coinbase exchange. So I thought that was interesting, considering Donald Trump has often spoken negatively of Bitcoin, and now he's not only chosen a VP that is holding Bitcoin, which means he's going to be um, fairly positive or at least neutral in regard to regulations attempted to stifle Bitcoin. And Trump has often also kind of moderated his tone, if not outright changed it, in terms of he's going to be speaking. I think it's the 24th at the Bitcoin conference in Nashville. He also has a lot of advisors, not a lot, but he has some very influential advisors around him that are very big proponents of Bitcoin. So I think that in addition, he's also taking, Bitcoin donations. So I think with all of that, he's really changed his tone. And I think this is positive news for the people that are Bitcoin proponents. I think Bitcoin is pretty much here to stay. Particularly, you hear things that Donald Trump has said. He's referred to as like a strategic reserve asset. You think about some of the things that get cracked for me. He's one of the panelists that comes on and he talks about the milkshake theory and how a lot of these Bitcoins are pegged to the dollar. So I just wanted to hear other people's inside opinions on Trump's VP, particularly if you are a Bitcoin enthusiast. This must be a good sign for you. And if you are contrary to Bitcoin, I wonder what is your opinion now. The other thing I wanted to talk about was the Indian dominance. Something crossed my mind. I can't remember what it was, but I just started to look into the dominance of the Indian CEOs all across the world, all across the big companies. As a software developer, I've worked with many Indians across networking, software, hardware. And so it is interesting to see their rise. And I was curious to know what is behind the dominance of the Indians, not just in tech, but in the C suites all across the world. So I think I shared some of those with you in the stream. So I'm curious to hear any feedback. If anyone has it, you can comment in the chat or in the comments here. Here's some articles that I saw that led me down that road here. Here's something here. And one of the things I thought about was, JD Vance's wife. She's Indian. One of the leading VP candidates that many people wanted Trump to select was Vivek Ramaswamy. There are many other Indian CEOs, as you can see here. We'll go through the list of all of the Indian CEOs, but there are quite a few, and I think the list may surprise you. Um, to get back to one of our panelists, Master Kim, he used to always talk about, he just talked quite frequently about the Indians that dominate the grocery, the motels, the Dairy Queens, and things like that, bodegas. But it's very interesting to see them being very dominant here in the corporate space. So let's take a look at some of the CEOs here, and you'll see what I mean here. This guy here is the head of Microsoft, chairman and CEO, succeeded Steve Ballmer. Arvind Krishna, here's another guy, CEO of IBM. Wow. Uh, so all used to be blue chip type companies. This is the CEO of Adobe, right here, Shantanu Narayan. He's been there since 2007. Wow, he's been there 17 years. CEO of Adobe. He's a Hyderabad native. And on it goes. It's very interesting to see like just the level of CEOs that are coming out of India. And I was just curious to know what, if anyone has any opinion as to what is the reasoning, if there's a reasoning behind this that maybe others could mimic their success. Former senior executive at Google, uh, president of SoftBank. I've heard of SoftBank. Palo Alto Networks. This guy has an extensive resume here. And on it goes. I mean, you look at these people, men and women. Chanel, um, Ravi Kumar. I've heard that name before. And he is the CEO of Cognizant. That's a big Indian company there. Um, this guy doesn't even look Indian. Indian-born British American. He's the chief executive of Diageo. Interesting. Nonetheless. Anyway, some very interesting people that have seemed to be able to get a stronghold in the corporate C-suites here. Here is the CEO of Twitter. Well, at least a former CEO. Um, this guy here. Well, I think you've seen him. Microsoft. I mean, this is very, very impressive. Very impressive. CEO of Google. As I mentioned, JD Vance's his ex-wife is zoom in. Oh, sorry about that. Let me zoom in. Let me go back to the other page, and I'll zoom in here. Let you guys see some of the Indian CEOs. I think you'll all be pretty impressed by this. I'll just go back through some of the list again. I think this is the Microsoft guy here. Microsoft. I mean, the list goes on and on. Let's see who this guy is. Micron. Wow, semiconductor company. Let's see more. Vivek Sankaran. And he is, wow, CEO of a grocery store. That's pretty impressive. I mean, this is a pretty diverse industry list of people that, hey, good morning, Stanley. I think you said you were going to invite someone up that maybe has some opinions on this. I'm very impressed, to be quite honest with you. I knew that that the Indians were very dominant in the software industry. And they are. And it looks like it's not just software here. Let's take a look at this guy, Neil Mohan. He's an American business executive. He was born in Indiana. I don't know why he's on this list. Well, maybe it's because it's Indiana. Let's see. This guy, Banga. That's interesting. He is currently the president of the World Bank Group. I used to work for the World Bank, and he was executive chairman of MasterCard. This is a very impressive, very, very, very impressive people that have somehow been very dominant in corporate America. So I was just curious to know or hear other people's feedback as to why they are so dominant. Let me share with you a couple articles that may shed some light into it. As a software developer, again, I've worked with many, many Indians in the field, and you'll see that one of the CEOs of the World Bank is Indian. And I remember working a contract there, and at some point when the contract was up, I was working with a couple of Indian guys, and the Indian guy was sure that his contract would be extended. And so we had a conversation at one point. He says, "Hey, if I don't get my contract extended, I have to go back to India." He says, there really are no consequences to you if they don't extend your contract. The manager, being Indian, knew to the guy what circumstances he was under. And of course, his contract was extended. I can't say definitively that's why his contract was extended, but I can say that he felt pretty sure that he would get his contract extended because of his H-1B circumstances. And so I think that in many cases, and I've read cases that the Indian government strongly pushes for Boeing and any other companies that they sign big contracts with to make sure that they hire Indian talent, preferably locally, but definitely anywhere that there are Indian talent to be had. So I think you'll see some of the things that apply here, I think is applying in the broader marketplace where companies like Boeing and Airbus, they're signing huge deals. India is a very large company. And some of the demands that India is placing on Boeing and Airbus and other companies is you need to hire some of our employees. It only makes sense as a nationalistic point of view. They're trying to grow their country. And you'll see, many of you probably have heard of Tata, Wipro, or Infosys. Those are all very large Indian contractors. And many times they'll have contracts here with companies, and they'll have people on site working. And many times they'll be H-1Bs. So a large percentage of their staff, even here in America, will be H-1B visa people or employees. as opposed to Americans. Americans may be in the higher reaches of management, and then all of the workers, the software developers and knowledge workers, typically are going to be employees of on an H-1B type status. Anyway, so let's take a look. And I think you'll get an idea of the pressure that India is able to place on these companies. Air India's aircraft deal with Boeing and Airbus to create 10,000 jobs in India. And, this is one of the things, I can't disagree with what India is doing. They don't want to just export. They don't just want to buy planes. They want to learn how to build the planes and have them built in their country. And they're putting demands on these companies that want to tap that market to, hey, you need to hire our employees. And you can kind of see this deal would directly impact the Indian talent industry by creating tremendous employment opportunities across various domains. We expect 10,000 new jobs in both tech and non-tech roles to be created in the aviation sector. The aviation industry generates multiple jobs each year. That is correct. You'll see expected rate of growth of job creation in India. India, wow, has 141 airports. And so I think these are the things. There are others here. And there's one thing that I wanted to point out. We've all heard about TCS, which is Tata, firing American employees and replacing them with H-1B. Financially, it really provides a boost for them, but they also really get control over their workers in a fashion that they wouldn't be able to do it. Let me maximize here. TCS, which is Tata, is a company, and they were alleged of giving jobs to Indians on H-1B visas. Again, it's kind of one of those examples I talked to you about earlier when I worked at the World Bank. Over 20 American employees of Tata have reportedly dragged the firm to the EEOC, alleging their jobs were given to Indians with H-1Bs, reported the Wall Street Journal. And we've all heard about this, but I think the extent of this, clearly with many of the CEOs being Indian, many of them may even live in India part-time or full-time. But I think there is a kind of a tendency to want to help their own people. And if they can help pull their people out of the slums of India and have their company be much more profitable with those employees being H-1B visas versus Americans, as you can see here, Caucasians, Asians, and Hispanics in the 40 to 60 age group claim that to have masters of business administration or other advanced degrees. And that's just what I told you, that typically this affects the lower skill workers, but it would make sense that these lower skill workers, the software developers, so on and so forth, would move into management or be able to do it. Well, they already are doing advanced skilled things. So it would make sense that they would replace them. Let's see here. TCS, of course, denies this, but you can clearly see in some of the statistics of TCS workers that it's a heavily Indian company. Even here in America, many of the employees are Indian. If someone is interested, I hear we have a couple people backstage, and we're going to bring them up now. And we have Stanley. Okay, I'm glad Stanley showed up. What's up, Stanley? How's it going?
Pretty good. Hey, I wanted to that one point you made about pulling folks up out of the Indian slums. And that's why I wanted my buddy to come up here, because I mean he is knee deep in all that. He's some sort of economist out in San Francisco, and he knows this H-1B stuff. This, he's of Indian extraction, though I think he was born here. Anyway, the point about the slums is that you would be shocked. Most of the people that come over here from H-1B on H-1B visas are elite students in India. They are not just, they do have, civil rights types of legislation, but the people coming over here to work are actually generally elite students.
No, I
And
don't doubt that.
you get into Brahmins, you get into some complicated stuff, with caste discrimination, and that's why he needs to be here, because I mean he just knows this stuff because we talk about it all the time.
You know, this that's interesting that you mentioned the caste and discrimination. Um, I forgot to mention this kind of in the somewhat monologue that I had there. But here's a thing that I read about years ago, and I guess it is still in the news here. And I'm going to see if I can pull it up for you. Um, and it was with a company called Cisco. And yeah,
Yep.
here. Yep. Does anyone remember that?
I know it, and it's still a hot topic in Indian, elite circles.
Yeah. 3 years after it was filed, CRD has dropped lawsuit against him and engineer Ramana Kampella. But basically, I'll see if I can find a few snippets. But the gist of it is that the Indians were working at Cisco Systems and more or less had instituted the caste from India within Cisco, and that was the discrimination lawsuit. Is that the Indians were more or less suing based on the treatment of other Indians to them, based on this caste system here. Here, maybe the highlight of it here. They filed a lawsuit against Cisco and his two engineers, alleging caste-based. Let me maximize that in case you guys can't see it. Alleging caste-based discrimination and harassment of John Doe, anonymous plaintiff, based on his Dalit identity. Stanley, Master Kim, are you familiar with a Dalit identity?
Yeah, the English version is untouchable.
That is correct. That is correct. That is correct. Master Kim, are you familiar with this?
I'm not familiar with that. I got a shirt for you too. I'm not familiar with that one. Uh, Dorothy, one in the middle. My apologies, gentlemen.
No problem. But yeah, so there has been some of that they brought from their homeland to here to the United States. In that,
No,
people
I'm
don't.
not familiar
Go
with
ahead.
that. The ones I've got the most experience with are the Patels. And for today's show, until you switch content, please refer to me as Kimbai Patel. Please. Thank you.
I like that, Master Kim. Hey, Master Kim, your mic is a little low though. Are you able to turn it up a bit?
Let me try right now. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're sounding better already.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
in Florida in a storm, unfortunately.
oh, that's correct. That's correct. I forget you travel all over the place, Master Kim. Let me look at a little bit more of this article. Though the case has against me has been dropped, I feel a moral obligation to defend the company, said the 47-year-old engineer. The state agency filed a civil rights lawsuit against John Doe, given unequal pay, offered fewer professional opportunities, and faced harassment. The case took center stage in the anti-caste based discrimination movement across U.S. universities, wow, and corporations. The allegations were widely discussed on social media, while the identity politics among Indian American Hindus was fueled. More significantly, it became a rallying point for a demand to recognize caste based discrimination in the United States. I bet you many Americans were probably unaware of the caste based discrimination or the extent to it that it is practiced in.
Well, no, but there are two hotbeds of New Jersey and California.
Mhm.
If you see a guy, he goes by Anan, Anan. If you see him in the chat, definitely get him up here. But he's on the West Coast, so he's earlier. But because I know pretty much what I know through discussions with him. Because when I learned about it, I was shocked. But it within the Indian community, it is a thing, John. It is a storm. It is a quiet storm, and nobody, like you never hear about this stuff outside of California or YouTube. There's a lot of YouTube content revolving around this sort of stuff.
Yeah, the I have a couple examples. I just remembered one example. I worked in New York for years, and one of my last contracts there, I worked for L'Oreal, and let's just say like this software looked like it had been developed by just a random mishmash of people who had no ability to build out cohesive software. Spaghetti code you will hear oftentimes in the software industry, and this was the epitome of it. No reuse of code, no reuse of content, just code all over the place. But anyway, so I was working there, and I was the only black guy, and there was another white guy, so we were the only Americans. And so it was staffed with Indians, and they would talk in whatever language, Hindu. You couldn't understand what they were saying, and more or less we were in a little pod, I guess you would call it, and you didn't know what they were talking about. But they all lived in New Jersey, and I'm not sure if many people know, but New Jersey is like the highest income state in the country. Did anyone know that?
It doesn't surprise me
I
because
was unaware of that.
Indians as an ethnic group, if they're not the highest income wise, they're damn near close.
Yeah, I think they are the highest. Matter of fact, let me look that up. New Jersey salaries. And Master Kim he can talk a lot about the business ownership of the
Oh, and the funny part, the Patels are not at the top, are not at the apex of the income pyramid.
well, who do you think is at the top?
Well, Brahmins basically. Now, I'm sure I don't understand the ins and outs. Patels, I don't know that they're a Brahmin caste. However, the tech industry, and the financial industries are just like um, there. So many, C-level executives are of Indian extraction, and the one thing I have to give them is that they will beat your ass if you're not making A's in school. You know, probably not that bad. I'm being a little hyperbolic, but um, more so than any Asians in general. Um, I know Indians. I mean, if you're not a doctor or a lawyer, you're a failure.
Can you all see this? Like
Yep.
this is like, I mean, they are beating
Yeah,
everyone by leaps
Yep.
and bounds. There's no one close to them.
Yep.
I mean, that's really amazing. And I'm not taking anything away from them. I've read that there is quite a bit of fraud over there, and like certification fraud. And I'll tell you another story that, from my experience, I worked with at Con Edison, Consolidated Edison, which is a utility company. And there were quite a few Indians, and some of them clearly knew what, they were very talented. But there was one in particular that I didn't think he knew what he was doing. And he seemed to be getting help by a fellow Indian. But I couldn't prove it because they're speaking a different language. And I think that is an advantage that they have in America, is that the language is so obscure that they can talk it pretty much in public, and no one will be able to make heads or tails of what they're saying. And in the employment sector, or even in the criminal sector, to try to investigate someone speaking a totally different language, it becomes very difficult. And I think that is the problem. Well, I'm not going to say that's a problem, but I think that is a gap that they are able to exploit. For
Well,
sure.
one thing I want to point out, if I recall, English is like the second national language in India.
Oh, is that right?
There's so many dialects, though. Sometimes English is the lingua franca because of dialectical. I don't know what the word is. Differences, but it. I've probably been aware of all this for a couple years now, but it is fascinating. It is like a whole world that is just below the surface that you only run into if you're in tech or certain industries.
Well, I think that the CEOs, and that was my thought initially before I started this. I thought they were mostly in tech companies. But as you can see, the CEO of Chanel is an Indian. I guess Adobe is a technical company, but there's a lot of creativity that goes into Adobe. And therein again, you have the CEO of Adobe,
But
Microsoft.
you also have to understand in the banking and financial industries, they're there too.
Yeah,
So, you take someone from Goldman Sachs and install them as CEO of a grocery company. These guys know finance.
and the other thing, as we get even further, um, politically, they're very strong. I think they're much more politically active than, say, some of the other ethnic groups, or maybe they're just more dominant. You look at JD Vance's wife; she's an Indian. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, but
Vivek,
she's not in politics. I mean, she's married to a politician.
well, but I think her company, if you work for a very large law firm, there is going to be some political aspects as to who their clients are, the donations by the law firm.
Right.
Then you have Vivek Ramaswamy. Again, nothing. I'm not criticizing these people, but they are. I'm actually praising them. They're very, very successful, and there must be some method to the madness there.
Well, it's culture. They strive for excellence. Period. If you've ever read Battle Hymn of the Tiger Mom, Amy Chua wrote it. She's a law professor at Yale. As a matter of fact, she was a teacher of J.D. Vance, by the way.
Wow. Yeah.
But you ought to read this book. I read Battle Hymn of the Tiger Mom, and man, her demands for excellence. I don't want to use the child abuse term, but damn it was touching the line.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mr. Kim.
John, Stanley's absolutely right on, especially with his earlier comments about the Patels. People get the illusion that the Patels are top of the food chain when really they're just retailers on the low end, kind of like my cut of earth. That's why I kind of joke about them a lot, because I know so much about kind of low end, low skilled labor. That's my background, unfortunately. Yeah, Stanley, spot on. It's very funny hearing Stanley talk on Stanley. It's very funny hearing you talk on other streams dealing with absolute buffoons, man. But hey, keep on doing it, man. It's very inspiring to say the least. But yeah, these people are wired different. So an American thing is go with the flow sometimes. Their brains almost short circuit with that concept, go with the flow. Things are absolute, which means in customer service, they actually do very well because they want to get to the root of the problem. Not all the times. They dominate that region. They speak excellent English. Some of them high end go to Catholic schools, so they know everything quite a bit more about U.S. history and British history. They dominate. So that's why when there's a toss up, who's going to dominate the future, whether it be China or India, the Indians dominate because they speak excellent English. The 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 jovial skills, the slap on the back American thing. They will never really get that because they're not Americans, but they make up with it for IQs and all that type of stuff. But they do a lot better job than Asians. That's a fact, unfortunately. And I'll mute my mic. Sorry, gentlemen.
I remember reading that there was some kind of like a pattern or whatever to their last names. And you'll see here that Patel is the name of an Indian caste from the state of Gujarat. Originally, they were landowners, and now they've since become prominent in business. Um, and I think it goes along like I think Singhs, maybe in medicine or something like that. Are you familiar with this at all, Master Kim or Stanley?
Oh yeah, the Singhs are
Well,
from
yeah.
which was referred to as the Sadars. They are very big in stature generally, and they're the ones that I believe back in the when the Muslims tried to take over North India, and please, Stanley, correct me dead in my tracks, they were the ones fighting heads up with the Muslims to protect all of India from being overran by the Aga Khans or the Muslims. So they have a lot of gratitude that despite they're all very competitive, it's the Singhs alone, if I'm not mistaken, that has kind of held the border from all of India being taken over by the Muslims. And I'm not saying which is right or wrong, because I know even to this day they still conflict up in Kashmir with Pakistan and whatnot. But yeah, the different sects, and I think you're right. It's all from their village and area. Right now, the Patels are continuously grinning from ear to ear because the prime minister, the president, is from Gujarat. Everyone knows his name, and my brain is just frozen for a second. Sorry, John.
Modi.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Hey, John, I want to also just add, caste in and of itself is so complicated. There's a book by Isabel. Is it Isabel or Isabella Wilkerson? She wrote a book called Caste, dealing with American racism and comparing it to Indian caste. Man, caste is so, they're like thousands of castes. Everyone wants to simplify it to Brahmin or untouchables or this or that. Oh, no, 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 it is so complicated. Probably I would almost say, and I want my friend to hop up here because he is just like he breathes it. He's so good with it, and he's an economist. But these, so what I'm saying is, a line of surgeons or a line of retailers, it's not that surprising that names get associated. It's almost like a tailor. Originally tailors were tailors, I guess. It's kind of like that.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting. I did not know that the names had such meaning. Tying them somewhat to a profession. I think I just saw the Modi name here. Let me see if I can find the Modi name. Modi, if you can see this here, is a surname again found in certain regions. If someone is asking about this, I can't pronounce this, but someone is asking about this community here. Again, Patels are known for land owning and business. And the Singh, I think you're correct, Master Kim. That is known for lion, and you'll see some of the popular Dubey Duwid is a popular Brahmin surname. So yeah, here's a West Indian surname. So again, very interesting um, country there, and the people that are coming from there. There's one other thing I wanted to share with you, kind of what I think is going to parallel a lot of American society. Looks like we have someone up. Mello.
Hi.
Oh,
Hi.
Melia. Sorry, Mella. Yes. How are you?
I'm good today, just like you are. Um,
Thank you.
just allow me to listen until I can catch up. Is that all right?
Sure. I'll give you a recap. The first thing I mentioned was I filmed a couple of preview streams. One about JD Vance and his ownership of Bitcoin that was disclosed in his financial disclosures. And we all
Billy? Okay.
and we've all heard about Trump initially being anti-Bitcoin, but it seems his approach is softening now. And then the other topic is the dominance of the Indians in America. Well, not just American society, but corporate society in the C-suites,
Yes.
as well as in the technical arena.
Absolutely.
I would even say in the medical, the banking, and we
It's
talk a lot about the
amazing.
Jewish people, but these people are pretty damn dominant themselves.
It's spreading like a virus. Yes, it is.
So you have any thoughts about the Indians? I think we can talk freely about the Indians and not have to worry about getting banned here. So
They carry a sense of entitlement here in this country because they were or are considered top tier from where they come from. The elites are coming over here, right? The elites. And when I say the elites, I'm talking about those who are, possessing C-suites and corporate environments. Those are considered elites where they come from. So it's not a coincidence that they have this um, ambition and drive and entitlement mentality to take out anybody that stands above them.
Well, I have a totally different take. Most of what you say is correct, but the spirit and intent. The one thing I have, if I had a choice between, someone made a joke about, hey, one of these days the Asians are going to take over. My response was, I welcome my Asian overlords. The reason I say this is that if you are smart and you meet their standard, they don't give a damn about your color. So
Okay, so yeah,
the
it's
sense
true
of
that
superiority, the only sense of superiority they have and they share with me, I don't like stupid people, especially if they're intentionally stupid.
correct.
Well,
Um,
let me respond. Let me
I
respond,
will
Yamila.
agree that
Go ahead.
The Indian people are colorist. I can agree with that. I
Be
can
brave. You
agree.
want?
Asian people already know they're Asian, so they're not into the colorism thing like those in
No,
East.
that's not true.
How is
As a
that?
matter of fact, in India, one of the tropes is skin lightening cream, just like in Africa. They sell skin lightening cream and those sorts of beauty products in India, and I'm sure elsewhere in Asia as well.
Yeah. Did you hear us discuss the Dalit identity? Stanley gave us the American definition of it. What is it? Untouchable,
Hey,
Stanley.
hey, Stanley, could you please repeat that because I did
It's
miss
more
that.
complicated,
That's pretty important.
but yeah, untouchable is a rough, you know, uh, that you get the sense of what it means. And I just texted my friend to see if he can join because dude knows it. I'm just kind of reflecting his knowledge, of the conversations we've had. What was it, Mr. Kim?
Oh no, I was going to say, could you please repeat that whole delete thing? I missed it. I was kind of checking out of a hotel, or when your friend comes back up, whenever you feel comfortable, just
Well,
reiterate that whole delete.
I hesitate to say it, but he's not here. if if you wanted Americans, kind of like on the street, don't know it, Dali, their eyes might glaze over. If you say untouchable, you'll get a sense of the word. But
Yeah.
Dali is much more complicated than quote untouchable, because that there are Dalis who are billionaires. So that's why caste is so complicated. And a Westerner, unless you're just like really into it, I don't. I know a little bit, and I know that I don't know anywhere like minuscule amounts of caste.
Yeah. Yeah. I wasn't even familiar with this when I first read about the Cisco lawsuit, where the Indians had basically instituted a caste from their homeland. Here, that was my first eye opener to it. And again, I've told you I've had experiences in the workforce. Um,
Well,
dealing
it's
with
more complicated than that. Seattle actually incorporated caste into their local anti-discrimination laws, which the Indians are up in arms about. They don't want caste added as a protected class.
really.
And they're attempting to do it in California, but I haven't kept up with any of that. But my buddy lives in San Francisco; he would know. But yeah, Seattle literally enacted or added caste to their local civil rights legislation.
Damn. It's a diverse world we live in. Brave, I see you up here on the panel. What do you think about all this?
Is caste? I've always thought caste was a indication of very lower uh, caste, like low caste. No, it's
Well,
what the
Brahmins are part of the caste system, so it's basically an intersection. And if intersection or intersectional is a has a concept, caste is it. Caste could be made up of profession, where you're from, um, the caste of your parents. There's like so many irons in a particular person's caste. Um, You could almost say every single individual in under the system, and it's basically a Hindu type of system. Um, Almost everybody, you could say, has his or her own caste, like a personal caste.
So it's like a formal. It's just like a formal class system where you stay.
No, it
No,
puts caste to shame.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
what puts caste to shame?
No, class. Caste is vastly more complicated.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Um,
saying. Class is kind of, that's what I say. It's kind of like a fancy way of a very not a very solid class system. In other words, here in America, we got class, lower class, upper class, middle class. Everybody
right.
just floats in between them at will. In India, you're in a class, you stay in that class.
Okay, well, India has class too, but it's a Western. Basically, the English imposed or tried to make sense of caste using the Western ideas about
Right.
caste. As a matter
I'm
of
just
fact,
saying.
caste, if I recall, caste is an English word. There's an Indian word for it, but caste is, the Anglicization. In comparing India, like the caste system to the West, it's like apples and oranges.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's much more strict. Caste is
Yeah.
strict. You don't get to move.
No, it's not strict. I'm pretty sure
Oh,
you can change classes. Like
okay.
I said,
Yeah, yeah,
almost
yeah.
every individual has his personal caste.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. Okay.
hey, Brave, there are some people in the chat saying that one of India's richest guys is dark skinned.
Uh huh.
Okay, well, caste isn't skin color. You don't
No,
go into.
it's born status.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. As Brave said, I think it's very difficult to get out of it. From my understanding, though,
Yeah,
that
that's what I've always heard. I don't know.
from my understanding, the lighter ones, and correct me if I'm wrong, Stanley, are higher on the
Well, hell
pecking order.
yeah. Well, hell yeah.
Well, that's more. That's
Am I wrong?
but however, I would almost venture to say that's coincidence. They're not
Mhm.
classed because of skin color. Remember, class has no meaning when you start talking caste.
But
Yeah,
I just wanted to, on the all of those fellas at the head of these corporations. It's kind of funny as we go into and have been in, I say, for the last 100 years, the established, though we don't want to admit it, new world order. What better people to put at the head of corporations than people that have no social conscience about abusing the lesser of people on
Okay,
the.
you do realize that a lot of these guys are Americans, like born in America, right?
Yeah, no, I'm just. It doesn't matter. The point is they've got
Yeah,
the
of course it matters.
Stanley.
well,
Can I, let me
hold on, hold on,
finish?
hold on.
Damn, buddy.
Let me finish, Stanley.
God damn, I ain't gonna. I'm not gonna go on a diatribe. I'm just saying. It just. It. The Indians have in their psyche the ability to abuse other humans more
I
so
would
than USA.
no,
All right,
no,
hey,
dude. Hinduism, Hinduism.
hold on, Stanley. We're not going to debate it back and forth. That's Brave's opinion.
Yeah.
Give us your opinion, Stanley. Then
Yeah.
Well, then, my opinion is Brave needs to do more reading or meet an Indian elite.
No, I need to look at
all
India
right,
when they
all right,
have.
yeah,
Your
all
opinion
right.
about Brave is uninteresting, though, Stanley. Can you offer us your opinion about the topic he was discussing instead?
He wasn't discussing it.
Well,
Indians don't have it. Indians don't have it in their psyche to abuse anyone.
Look at the way.
Hinduism,
That
Hinduism. Now, anything
Stanley's right. Stanley is right.
Hinduism is like, dude. They don't. You can be a Catholic and
I
be
said it.
included in
I said
Hinduism.
it. Okay, I said it wrong. Indians have it in their psyche to turn a blind eye to human misery. Is that better?
No, I disagree with that too.
Well, then we'll
okay,
just we'll live in
all right.
a
We can agree to disagree, but
yeah.
I think what we can agree with is that when the Indians come here, they seemingly have been willing to institute a caste system
No,
within their employment environment, at least in one company, and that's Cisco.
I'm telling you, right? Well, number one, the lawsuit was dropped, if you recall, and number two, they Indians are up in arms about denying that they're instituting caste into companies or wherever. Now that is totally up. I don't have a dog in the fight, and it's hard for me to even understand caste. So I'd be a fool to delve into it. But if you said that to certain Indians, they'd be up in arms. They're not trying to institute anything.
Well, I'm not saying that all of them have played a part in it, but at least at Cisco, there was a Dalit, an untouchable engineer. Let me share the page
You
with
know
you
the
guys.
story.
Right. So that's something that comes from their country. That's not something that Americans do. We don't practice caste. They practice caste. And I'm not criticizing it. I'm just saying that this is a practice in their country. And when
Okay,
they
and the lawsuit was dropped.
understood.
They
I'm not
couldn't they
arguing.
couldn't prove that it was being instituted at Cisco.
I'm not disputing that. But there was the allegation. There were the words of Dalit. And even though the case is dropped, the people who were the plaintiffs in this case are probably still feeling that they suffered some kind of caste discrimination. As
And
we can,
what did the originator of the lawsuit? He still supports the company. Is that what I heard?
yeah, it probably does. And again, look at what you mentioned this, Stanley. So I brought it up. If everyone can see the screen, Seattle City Council passed a law that amends the city's municipal code to include caste as a protected class. They
Hmm.
wouldn't have to do this if seemingly a lot of Indians are in Seattle area and promulgating some form of caste. I would presume, unless they are front running uh, this type of activity.
And Indians are up in arms. There's certain parts of certain part. I think now the lady who led that fight is of Indian extraction. Also, I can't remember her name. She's a progressive, by the way. Um, I cannot remember her name, but Seattle is alone. California hasn't been able to do it, and if anything, it's probably more a West Coast issue because that's where a lot of the tech industry is. New Jersey, yeah, that's her. Sharma, something similar to that. Um, New Jersey's a center. Um, it's not something that's very widespread throughout America because most of the Indians have settled in certain places. That sort of thing.
So what's going on here is you get a large population of people from India in a city, and they want to carry on their caste system within that
No,
city. No,
they say no,
Well,
and I would
let's read.
I would be inclined to agree with them.
Let's read this guy's response here. Yogesh Main, a Seattle resident who grew up as a Dalit or untouchable in India, broke into tears as he heard the council's decision to include caste as a protected class.
Now, let me
So,
tell you why they're wrong.
you mean why he's wrong?
No, why including caste is wrong.
Okay, why do you think it's wrong?
Caste is so foreign to Western culture. Putting something you don't understand into law is a ticking time bomb.
it does seem silly that we're here in America
Exactly.
dealing with a caste worries. It would be like,
Exactly.
okay, you're here in America. There's this thing over here called a constitution. We've been doing it very well, even though we
Exactly.
discriminate according to wink, wink, and nudge, nudge. There's nothing anything close to a caste system. See, this is what
Well,
I'm saying. Who in the hell? How do we let this stuff even bleed into these city
well,
councils?
it's just
I say,
in
well, let me
Seattle.
finish. I'll finish right here. I say they let that bleed in as a drip, getting the
Yes,
getting the camel's nose under the tent.
yes.
This is what they're headed for, to
I,
water down the actual system of America where humans are just born human.
Well, we have a point of agreement, and the analog to that is, and this is going to seem weird, but the analog to that, in my opinion, is Sharia councils. They call them Sharia courts in Britain.
Yep.
That is a
Well,
camel. You're right. It's a nose under the tent.
isn't there
We
Sharia
shouldn't
gaining
even pay
ground in
attention to
America?
cast.
Is
Don't.
Sharia gaining ground in Minneapolis up there or anything like that, or
Yeah,
Michigan?
yeah, that's what he's
Not
talking
that I know. America. You know what? That's the one thing where I will stand side by side with my MAGA buddies. Sharia has no place in American law.
You can't imagine it.
Neither does Hinduism. And I'm not like a fundamentalist Christian. It's just so foreign to Western culture. It's a ticking time bomb.
Yeah.
Once it gets in, you're not going to unroot it. It's like kudzu in the South.
That's why I
about.
say
I
there's
do.
forces. Yeah, there's forces that are kicking the shit out of the American culture, folks. We're not paying attention to them. This is just little things, but they the old saying, "Death by a thousand cuts."
Well,
you know,
now the opposite. My thing is that the biggest cutter of American society is American society.
well, yeah, we're just because we're apathetical, we don't care, nobody worries, and there's nothing you can do anyway. When it's too far gone, they took control 100 years ago. What are you going to do with that kind of momentum?
Hey, hold on for a second. Look at this. Look at this quote here. We've heard hundreds of gut-wrenching stories over the last few weeks showing us that caste discrimination is very real in Seattle. You know, this is where I do somewhat agree with Brave here, is that I don't think Americans would be willing to implement a caste system that's rigid the way that these people are seemingly willing to implement it. And
No,
so what we have in America, which I've said all along, and many people may say this, is that these people don't leave their traditions and customs behind. They don't come here from India and leave their longing for curry and mango lassi behind. They create mango lassi stands and curry restaurants.
that's the
And I
value
think,
of them. That's the value of them as CEOs, John. I still say, I'm telling you, it is.
and so I think the value of them as CEOs, and this is
It's
what made me,
cold heartedness.
well,
Indifference
there,
to human suffering.
there,
If you're going to be a corporate and you're going to go globe hopping and you're going to go into third world countries doing things, you can't have a conscience because of the way the corporations do what they do in third world countries. You
yeah,
couldn't sleep at you want nobody on this panel could sleep at night if we went as a CEO into a third world country and looked at their environmental regulations and threatened to kill somebody who hit our corporation with those environmental regulations. I couldn't sleep at night to threaten somebody's life over environmental regulations. You need people that can do that.
I think if you scratch all that out and you say they were just like everybody else and not um, instituting those type of things, I think that there is a tug string at their hearts to want to pull their people out of the slums of India. And I've given you the example where my contract was up along with the Indian guy's contract, and he was pretty much assured that the Indian person would hire him because not hiring him on an H-1B visa means he has to go back to India. They're not going to do that to each other, and that creates a playing field. And it's just one element of it that I think gives them a distinct advantage. And I don't think Americans play ball that way. Um,
No. Well, you
there is
got
no hey. There is no hey. If I don't give you the job, you got to go back to, I don't know, Africa or something, right?
yeah, you
So
go back to America, the USA, the land of
right,
opportunity. Poor
right, you
you.
go back home.
But there it's a strange thing. Some of the smartest people in the world, the culture that produces many of the smartest people in the world is also the cold-hearted, one of the most cold-hearted cultures in the world.
Someone says you can make a better argument about China when it comes to indifference in regard to human suffering.
I don't think China. I would rather live in China than India, where 700 million people shit in the dirt.
What do you think about that, Dennison? Is Dennison still here?
Yes,
Maybe.
sir.
What
Can
do
you
you
hear
think about
me?
that? Yeah, what do you think about that, Dennison?
About what Be Brave said about dirt?
Well, just the everything we talk about here, the
Would you
Indians.
rather live in China or India as far as human indifference to misery? Which one you want to live in? You take your pick.
Oof,
You know
man.
damn
I'm
well you're
thinking.
going to China. You're going to China.
I haven't been to either one.
I know.
So
You look at India just a little bit.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa,
You know
yikes.
what?
like it depends what the source is, I think, right? So your community and your quality of life in India, I think, is what you're talking about, right?
Just look at the pictures of India, man. There's slums
Yeah, I
and
think that's what he's talking about.
Right.
everywhere you go.
But
And
here's the thing:
in China, it's
if I have resources
yeah.
and I live in India, I'm not living like that. But in China,
all right, let's reword it for Denizen.
All right. Well, if this is going to go off the rails, I can drop off.
No. We're about to go to one more topic, Stanley. We're gonna let him finish this, and then we're gonna go ahead. Go ahead.
I'd be concerned about my own government's indifference for human suffering if I was in China a little bit more than in India.
That's a good answer. I think you do definitely have a point. I think China's government may be a little bit more oppressive than India's.
It is. That's why they don't have quite the bottom line suffering for the peasants. They direct everybody how to behave. Don't do this. In India, they go, you know what? Don't do this. But if you end up here, we really don't care. If you look at the pictures of suffering, and that's funny because Denison's a successful young man, and I'm an old 2-bit loser, and I was opinionating as an old loser, as a loser. Where do I want to go live? So I'm saying, no, I'm going to China as a loser. So that's two different perspectives. That's all I'm saying. When you're a loser in India, man, it's like, yikes. Woo!
Hey, does everyone remember the planes that crashed a couple years back? The Boeing planes. There were a couple of them crashed.
Great investment opportunity.
It very well was. But I took a lot of interest in that because I'm a software developer and I started reading into it. Now, most of you guys, when you log on to StreamYard, if you join this panel, you'll notice that there are some buttons selected and unselected for you. So you can say mute your camera or mute your audio. And those are either set to on or off, if you're familiar with that. So if you just come right in, click the button, either your camera will be on or off, and then you'll have to change the settings to turn your camera on and off. Everyone's familiar with that. And so I remember reading about the the Boeing plane crash, and it was tied back to something very similar to that, in that the software that Boeing rolled out had the default option set. And the more westernized plane companies were able to either pay for the training, or they understood how to deal with that default setting that was set by the programmers. And I've written a lot of software where you have to set default, or you don't have to, but you can set default parameters. And then if you have to be familiar with the software, again, like you log into StreamYard, some people log on here with their camera on and they don't have a shirt on. They didn't intend to log in with the camera on. And that was what I remember that had to do with the planes crashing in the third world, the Boeings. If they couldn't pay for the training, or they didn't pay for the training for the new software updates on those Boeing planes. And you'll see here, and it may be very difficult for me to draw the bridge with you from a software standpoint, but this, in my opinion, this is probably a software issue that caused these planes to crash, because Boeing did not have to make a hardware change to fix the issue. It was a software change. So it tells you something. Let's take a look here. Boeing 737 MAX software. This is the plane, 737 MAX. Software outsourced to $9 an hour engineers. Now, before I read any further into this, and this is what I think maybe why there are so many dominant CEOs. I think this is another component why they're Indian. Is that India exercises their heft in terms of country size, and they say, hey, we will buy 10,000 planes from Boeing, then Boeing needs to beef up its staff with Indian software developers. Those are some of the better paying jobs. And as you can see here, Boeing apparently had $9 an hour engineers. Now you can Google more about this, and you'll hear American engineers that worked at Boeing. This is a guy. This is Mark Rabin. He's a former software engineer. Recall one manager saying at an all hands meeting that Boeing didn't need senior engineers because its products were mature. It remains a mystery at the heart of Boeing's 737 MAX crisis how a company renowned for meticulous design, seemingly basic software mistakes, leading to a pair of deadly crashes. See, as I said, when I first read about this, when that plane first crashed, and I dug a little bit deeper, I knew it wasn't a hardware issue; it was a software issue, and clearly you can see that here. And the software issue was basically done by people making $9 an hour, and just the ability to think it through. Um, in something as simple as should I leave this default button checked or unchecked? It can make a difference. You can log on here with your camera on or off. Depends on what is the default option set. And think about that.
$9 an hour paid in India or on American shores?
Let's see. Increasingly the iconic American plane maker and its subcontractors, and this is the important part because the subcontractors are primarily where the H-1Bs come from, have relied on temporary workers making as little as $9 an hour, I'm assuming that's American dollars, to develop and test software, often from countries lacking a deep background in aerospace, notably India.
Hey, can you zoom in some more for the cell phone?
Sure.
Users,
Not a problem. All right. I'm going to read this again. The American plane maker, the iconic American plane maker and its subcontractors, keyword there, have relied on temporary workers making as little as $9 an hour to develop and test software, often from countries lacking a deep background in aerospace, notably India. In offices across Seattle's Boeing field, recent college graduates employed by the Indian developer HCL is one of the bigger Indian contracting companies, HCL, Tata, Cognizant, and Infosys, occupied several rows of desks. Anyone that's ever been a software developer, you'll know that oftentimes you don't work for the company. They'll have maybe a cubicle or a pod or something, and you sit there and you work with your coworkers at this company, and that's typically how it works. Said Mark Rabin, a former Boeing software engineer who worked in a flight test group that supported the MAX. The coders from HCL were typically designing to specifications set by Boeing. Still, it was controversial because it was far less efficient than Boeing engineers just writing the code. Frequently, he recalled, it took many rounds going back and forth because the code was not done correctly. Is anyone in tech in the audience? Anyone in tech in the audience? I can explain what he's saying here. The people in Bangalore, wherever they, Hyperbad, or wherever they work, Ryan, you may understand this. Get crack, you probably understand. You will work a day here in America, and then you may have a workload that the Indian guys that work on overnight, and they may drop off at 10, 11 o'clock in the morning.
Correct.
Yeah. And so they will do what you specified for them to do overnight. So you kind of get 24 hours efficiency. But you come back in the morning, this guy's about to roll off in a couple of hours, probably right after your stand-up at 9:30 in the morning. Stand-up is like a meeting. Hey, what are you working on? What are you going to do? What are any blockers? And now you got to analyze what this guy did overnight. You have a language barrier issue, and you got to try to figure out. Then you send it back to him, comes back the next day. Maybe it's right, maybe it's not right. If you understand a guy making $9 an hour, he's probably not going to be the best software developer. Let's be honest. He's probably pulling a lot of the code from searching for the code. Listen, I've worked with some of these people where they will Google and copy the code and don't take the comments out. Right? They won't take the comments out. And you be like, damn, that's somebody else's code. He just copied and pasted. Right? Or the variable names won't make sense. And I don't have the time to go into the variable name.
Oh man, let's go into it. Let's go into it, John. Tell your truth, man.
Right. So he just copied this from maybe GitHub or what's the one that people used to use all the time?
Stack
Damn, I can't remember.
Overflow,
Stack
yeah,
Overflow.
GitHub,
They
yeah.
said, damn, this guy copied from Stack Overflow, and then you see the comments, and it may have dates and someone else's name in it. They said, damn, like, so $9 an hour. This is what you're getting, and this is what Boeing.
Whoa, $9 an hour?
Here we go. Let me show it to you, so you don't think I'm lying to you. I may need to zoom in again. Is that right? $9 an hour. You can see the headline here, and here it is right here, $9 an hour. And this is a former Boeing engineer talking about, these guys. They would design it to specifications, and then basically they were far less efficient than the Boeing engineers just writing the code themselves. It took many rounds going back and forth because the code was not done correctly. Everyone can see this, correct? Boeing's culture. Now, here is the money line right here. Boeing's cultivation of Indian companies appeared to pay other dividends. In recent years, it has won orders from Indian military and commercial aircraft, such as a $22 billion one in January 17. That included 100 737 MAX 8 jets and represented Boeing's largest order ever. When you're buying that when you're making orders like that, as I said earlier, the Indian company can dictate to Boeing, hey, we need you to hire a lot more Indian developers, pull these people up out of the slums. And this is what Boeing has had to do. And they benefit going and coming because they get $9 an hour workers, software developers. And so that is what I think this actually is at the root of what I think the problem is. It definitely was with Boeing. And I think it's probably the root of why you see so many Indian H-1Bs and things like that here, because Boeing, as it says in the article, is teaming up with Indian companies such as HCL, and there are others, Tata, I think I showed those to you. And they are getting rewarded for hiring Indian developers with contracts.
We've all stolen code, right? Like, how many people up here have done software engineering? John, I know has. I have. GetCrack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brian, Be
I'm a hardware
Brave.
guy, so
Stanley.
yeah.
I don't know. No, I can
stolen
imagine
code,
what
though.
software is, but I wouldn't. I've never messed with it.
So John and I've stolen code. What about you, John?
Yeah. I've stolen code. And again, stealing the code is not really the issue.
Right.
Right. It's not really the issue. The issue is, first, you're sloppy. You're leaving someone else comments in there, right? That's not very professional. Secondly, you'll see them not even change the variable names, things like that.
Right.
That's not very professional.
You should have to too, right? Because at that point, if you're stealing the code, you should already have enough of a base of your own where you would have to modify anything you steal right off the bat, right, John?
Well, typically, and I guess, but you don't often have to modify the variable names. It depends on how much you're copying, right? If you're copying a connection to a database, you just copy, hey, how do you connect to a database? 4 or 5 lines of code, however many lines of code it takes.
Yeah,
You
usually
don't
you
have to
copy
change the variable.
snippets and stuff.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like
yeah.
most of these guys, they fucking copy the whole scale. I'm in hardware. You shouldn't be needing to freaking do that. And I got people doing the same exact thing that John. It's frustrating. In hardware, it's hardware, not soft. And these guys can't even. Oh my god.
Yeah.
It's
but listen, the CEOs who are supposedly so good at capitalism are paying people $9 an hour to throw it together, when they could pay people who know what they're doing a much more reasonable wage, but they'd have to hire American workers to do it. And then they blame it on DEI. While everything literally is falling out of the sky and all of our bridges are crumbling and our planes are falling out of the sky.
All right. Well, y'all seem to be done with the topic I was interested in.
Yeah. I think
What's the topic? What was the topic?
Oh, let me refresh it for Ryan, and then we're gonna cover. I would have covered one more thing that I think is gonna be interesting to you, but let me refresh Ryan. Basically, I was just more or less curious as to what is behind the Indian dominance. I showed a list, a long list.
Yeah, John. So
I'll tell you why. I'm just here to give my 2 cents and my own experience.
All right, we'll come to you next. Get crack. Give me Ryan's perspective.
So here's the thing.
All right.
I think it's a difference in the countries. I've said it a long time. China was able to advance. Communism is very good at pulling people out of poverty and feeding and clothing and taking care of everybody, right? It does a great job at that. That's what happened in China. So what happens is once everyone's fed and clothed, though, they tend to stagnate. It tends to slow down. China's advanced hugely since it was opened in the 70s for business. And so communism does a great job at feeding people, but it doesn't do a great job at continuing to evolve those economies, right? So China is starting to stagnate. India is advancing. India is a democracy. You're going to see more CEOs from India. If they continue to develop, which they're far slow, they haven't developed as fast as China for sure, but they are developing. And, over time, you should see more innovation. Their economy should go past China relatively fastly if China remains a dictatorship. Democracies do better. Once everyone's fed and clothed and doing well, democracies tend to take off, whereas communism just lags, right? But I think that India is educating their people. They have 1.5 billion people. So if you just look at the U.S. versus India, you got a 5-to-1 ratio there with the people to pick from. They're going to do good in the Olympics. They're going to do good in everything eventually, right? Because they're a democracy, and democracies do well once they're already, but India still has to work on infrastructure. They still have a lot of stuff to work on. Infrastructure. They're poor. Their economies are probably 1/5 to 1/10 the size of China still. So they're still developing. They're way behind China still. But at the rate they're going, they'll catch up. They'll build infrastructure, etc. So.
Hey, hold on, Brave. Let me go to Get Crack, and then I'll go to Brave, and then I want to talk about. Someone asked me to talk about the small hats and the Indians in South Africa. I don't know how much I'll touch on the small hats. I think we know everything about them.
I
But
only got one sentence before we go crack. One sentence, I promise.
All right, go ahead, Brave.
In India, success is driven right across the street. You got people in India looking at complete human misery. If you don't think that's not an incentive to get your ass in them textbooks and learn information and to learn your way out of that, you're mistaken. That's what India has as an advantage. Yeah. Right in their face is human misery. That's really an incentive to do better.
I agree with Be Brave there. They got a lot.
Yeah, that was a sentence, a run-on sentence.
I know. I'm sorry.
All right, Get Crack. Get Crack. Tell us about your thoughts, and then I want to discuss.
I mentioned it. I mentioned it in the streams with HB and all that, and the thing is like it's just an anecdote. I don't know for real what's going on in the broader scales of other companies, but when I was working, I had to protect my white manager. They took in a lot of Indians, and they were all aiming for his ass, trying to knock him out because they wanted to be the manager in their group. And I was interviewed by Intel, and Intel, you see the stock, right? You see what happened in the past 10, 15 years in Intel compared to AMD or NVIDIA, which are Taiwanese, basically CEOs, very heavily, primarily white and Chinese workers. Only recently probably got Indian workers, but primarily still white and Chinese. And the thing is like, they were trying to knock my manager off. And I'm like, hell nah. I was MFBing it. I was putting hidden cameras. I was putting everything to put in the labs and finding out if this guy was actively sabotaging us. And he came in the lab late at night doing shit. I put keyloggers, everything in the computers. I can't tell any more than that. But it was crazy. It's like these people think a different way, man. They're ready to and even it was Indian versus Indian. I had to protect another Indian dude who was like cool with me from another Indian dude from knocking him off from his position at work. I didn't want to work with that other dude. I had to protect him too. I had to protect all of them. It was insane. I was like more working like MFB style than actually doing my job at the end of it when I left.
Empathy is bred out of Indians.
So I can't say no more than that. But Yeah, and I didn't understand if it was caste or anything. So I had a group of Indians that I was cool with, and I was protecting them. And then I had a whole, and I just like, man, oh my god, it was insanity at the end of it. It was just so insane. I just couldn't believe this is how companies would run.
Yeah.
Is anyone familiar with the Guptas in South Africa?
The
No.
Indian Sanjay Gupta. I guess they're Indians in South Africa. I'm assuming, based on the name.
Hell yeah. Hell
Yeah.
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 And I think, go ahead, Ryan.
Well, I was just going to say. I mean, I know that the Indians like to get into other countries and try to affect industries, but well, what's their deal? What is the significance of them?
Well, they've occupied a very dominant position in South Africa in business, very similar to here. I wish Master Kim was still here. And it has bred a lot of hatred. You know, they're in India, you know, they're almost in South Africa, they damn near have a caste system in itself over there. They're the whites, the affluent whites, close to small hats. There are the Indians, and then there's kind of everyone else. You know, from the Trevor Noahs to the Zimbabweans to the people from Mali that have migrated to South Africa, and that really is kind of the low class. And so the Indians, these Gupta brothers from India, landed South Africa's ruling party in its biggest crisis. There are many, many articles. Here's another article that kind of explains their dominance is not just here; it's everywhere. Who are the Gupta brothers? Linked to corruption in South Africa and why two of them were arrested in India. Uh, but I want to get to the meat of the matter of what they have, how they've made their money. But I would imagine some trading, retail, business, but very, very wealthy. Here's some arrested in the UAE, accused of looting South Africa. We'll look at this article because I think this article will kind of show us what I think we're going to see a lot in America. And I think Master Kim's even shown us some of this, some of the Indian companies here in America engaging in very serious, like financial crimes, food stamp, EBT fraud, things like that. And so let's look at what they've done in South Africa here. And again, I'm not criticizing them. I started off on a very positive note by showing all of the executives and their dominance here. But Atul and Rajesh Gupta, business executives accused of plundering South African government resources with the support of the country's former president, that's Jacob Zuma, have been arrested in the United Arab Emirates, ending a run as fugitives. They were taken into custody by Interpol. There is an attempt to bring the South African government to bring their brothers back to trial. A third brother had been accused by a high-level inquiry of extracting favors from Jacob Zuma, the president, for their personal profit. They've, of course, denied the wrongdoing. Born in India, they moved to South Africa in the early 90s. Near the end of apartheid, they developed business interests in an array of sectors, including energy, media, cultivated ties with the ANC. The ANC led the struggle to end white minority rule and has governed is Africa's third largest economy. The Guptas have become particularly close with Zuma and his family. The president's former son, Duduzane Zuma, was a business partner of the brothers. Ties of patronage between the families are so strong that critics have referred to them collectively as Zuptas. Zuma and Zupta, there's a combination. So the thing is, I think that, what is happening in South Africa is that the immigrants have come there and gained a dominant position and more or less looted the country. And they pushed the whites out of the way. You know, they came there at the end of apartheid. They sided with the ANC, pushed the whites out of the way, and then they seemingly have dominated industry over the blacks that are left there that probably don't have the business skills that they have collecting the money that they have collectively. Is anyone familiar with these Guptas in South Africa? Anyone familiar with that?
All I know about him is what you just taught me.
Oh, really? Yeah, yeah. They no, this it's very interesting because I think there is a parallel between here and America in that the Guptas have come and they've done very well in South Africa and somewhat corrupted the government. And if you look at corporate America now, which I think Be Brave thinks runs the government, and here we have a lot of Indians in charge of a lot of corporate companies, and I think that they can effectively move the government in whatever fashion they so choose.
Let me be very clear. Those Indians are foot soldiers. They are not running the corporations. They may be the head or the CEO, but I do not think for a minute that the white global power structure is being replaced.
Interesting. What do
They're
you
not
think
all- they're-
about the white population in these countries they're exploiting, Brave? You think they're going to go along with it?
I think whites will go off into the sunset quietly.
You got to look
So,
at who's on the
you know,
board. The board
yeah.
votes in the CEO. So the CEO, if he's a good business manager, I mean, Warren Buffett's successor is an Indian.
Yeah.
But there's the board is, if it's all whites, then the board is voting them in and out. If it's all blacks, if it's all blues, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So the CEO is just managing.
There's a purpose of why they vote them in, and again, Indian CEOs, cold-hearted people. It's what's needed. Come on, think, folks. Think.
I just think you got so many people there, and they're educating their people.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many of them, right?
It's true. Yes.
5 times as in the U.S. And you're putting how many more through college, right? And then there's the pressure from the Indian family to do well.
That's why I said earlier, Ryan, they're producing the best brains in the world.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I got one more topic I want to cover, and it's again kind of along the recurring theme of Bitcoin. Initially, I was skeptical of Bitcoin. You've probably heard my earlier stream. I didn't understand where the value was. At this point, I don't think it matters where the value is. I think that the powers that be are all in with it. So It doesn't really matter.
Yes.
I think so. I led off the show by talking about JD Vance having about $250,000 in his financial disclosures in Bitcoin.
Hey, real quick, John.
Mm-hmm.
Look up JD Vance's wife.
I know that's one of the reasons why I.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Stop
okay.
it!
Okay. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I didn't bring her up, but for those that don't know,
We all know.
I will.
Hello.
For those that don't know, right? We may have some people who don't follow the news here, so we have for full disclosure. Now, I will say this though. I will say this. Here's JD Vance's wife, by the way.
I bet she makes a good butter chicken.
No. Oh, yeah, she does.
Oh man,
She's hot and she loves curry. She sucks down curry. She's huge chicken curry fan. Mm-hmm.
But she's got the right little profile there. Nice and slim. This woman has 3 children, 2 or 3 children.
She got like 5 degrees. She's very smart.
Oh, thank you very much. Yes.
I think they met at Yale.
Very nice. Very good.
You ain't right.
Who was that? Dennis? Was that Dennis that said that?
Yeah, that's Dennis. I didn't do that.
Oh man, like this
is wrong.
Now he.
I would like to see your tikka.
That's from Ricky Tikki Tabby. That's from Ricky Tikki Tabby. Okay.
Show me your butter tikka.
Now he looks a little dorky in this video. I will say that much. He looks in this picture here. He looked like he really shot over his head. And if I'm not mistaken, I very well could be wrong here. Even the headline says unlikely parent. And I don't know if anyone heard my preview on this show, but by and large, the Palantir guy owns this guy. Peter Thiel owns him. If anyone is familiar with Peter Thiel, someone says no beard. Yeah, he didn't have a beard at that time. This was long before Hillbilly Elegy.
Mm-hmm.
And this woman has made a lot of money working for politically connected law firms.
Yeah.
Right. Democrat politically connected. You can look at their donations. You don't have to take
yeah, that's right.
You're
right.
And this is his wife. And someone says Kamala Harris. And so now Now I think Kamala might be a little bit lighter than her. But anyway, so
Oh yeah.
here's a guy, doesn't look exceptional. And I explained to you over a couple streams now how Peter Thiel bear hugged this guy early on and made him a millionaire. Peter Thiel is a multi-billionaire. This is
From
how
that,
they go
from
ahead.
that
First.
picture, I'll bet you that they instructed him to grow that beard.
Well,
For
I think
political purposes.
his book too did pretty well. I think his book also helped launch him to,
Well,
But he
you
met
know,
her. He met her at college, and I think he used to copy off of her and stuff.
probably
From what I
did.
understand,
Little to no makeup in these pictures, though.
Smart
Yeah.
for chasing her though, because she is bright.
Yeah,
Good
she-
looking.
He looks
That's
a
what
lot,
you have to.
he looks a lot more presidential with that beard.
But I had a stream. I'm gonna see if I can find it. But I'm very skeptical. After having lived here in DC for so long, I'm very skeptical of these politicians that have been more or less bear hugged and bought out by.
Hey, John, didn't
JD
didn't
Vance wears eyeliner.
You
Say
good?
that-
Hey,
say that one more
John,
time.
John,
Yeah.
John. So
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
wasn't one of those politicians got married to some Chinese informant or something way back when? Or
No,
Yeah,
you're just
One
banging
of
her.
those.
Yeah. You talking about
Eric
Yeah.
Swalwell.
Swalwell?
Yeah,
Do you remember Nancy?
Swalwell.
He
Remember
was,
Nancy Pelosi?
he was doing the show you with the Chinese spy.
So that's what Chinese and Indians are probably doing right now.
Yeah,
They're putting
Yeah.
their lives. They're putting the women into these.
Yeah, but
positions.
what if Peter Thiel knows that and he picked her?
That's why
Well-
he's probably way more small hat than all these other guys. He's
Well, I
a
think she-
gay, European, Straussian guy.
Like, if I want to own
Yeah.
you, I really want to own you. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? I might as
yeah,
well pick
I
your
get
wife
you.
too.
I get you. Yeah.
Gold
do you
bars and all.
do you remember the lady that Nancy Pelosi had a Chinese driver that was a spy? Does anyone remember that?
Mhm. Yep, I
Right,
remember
everyone
that. I think it was
remembers
Feinstein, maybe. I don't know
Maybe
if it was
Feinstein's
Pelosi or
hard.
Feinstein.
Yeah,
One of them.
Feinstein.
One of
the
them
two.
did. Yeah.
One of the California senators had, and I don't think these type of things are by happenstance, to be honest with you. But anyway, I did a stream. When Trump first chose JD Vance, I was initially skeptical, and this was before any of the Bitcoin stuff came out. And again, so you can see that stream here where I said JD Vance should not be Trump's VP, and you can see the thumbnail overlay is Palantir. And so, for those of you that may not have heard the streams, I think Get Crack and I, we talked about Palantir and Peter Thiel. Let me share this with you, and this may surprise you because you're going to see how these people win going and coming when they buy politicians. And let me know if you can see the screen. Can you see this? Everyone can see this, right?
Yeah, CoinDesk.
Look at that. What does that headline say? What? Unbelievable.
Peter Thiel made $200 million investment in Bitcoin and Ethereum coin before ...
That is correct.
Before the bull run per report by Reuters.
That is correct. The source said that the investment was split evenly between the two digital assets. So he bought a little bit of both, half of both, Bitcoin, and the ETH stands for Ethereum. That's correct, right? He's made a $200 million investment in Bitcoin and Ether. He sold crypto holdings, Ethereum, whatever, for $1.8 billion before crypto winter. What? Does anyone know what that means?
Yeah,
I know
Yeah,
Get
we're
Crack
gonna
does.
talk
The
about
price-
that later.
the
Yeah,
price went
because
from
I show my cycle
60,000
charts. Yeah.
to
You understand what it? So Get Crack and Dennison understands what this means.
Yeah.
Ryan, do you understand what this means?
Yeah, it means they went from 60,000 for a Bitcoin to 15,000 in 2022.
But
The win,
he's
it was a
he
bad
got
period.
out. But he got out before
Yeah,
the
it's
crypto
easy to
went.
get out if you
Right,
know
He's
he
a
the
got out.
market
cycle.
maker. He's a market maker. He's
No,
probably
but we were
price
talking all
fixing.
morning about how to look at cycles and oh man, Ryan. Oh man,
Look,
the
all I'm saying
fundamental
is-
guy. The fundamental guy is
all I'm
using
saying is-
fundamentals.
Okay,
I
listen.
can tell you about cycles, baby.
I'm not
Everything
being
moves
critical.
in rhythms, a
What I'm
heartbeat.
saying is there's so much institutional money now. They can when they all sell, it's going to drop, and when they all buy, it's
Yeah,
gonna
I
go.
get that. I get that.
Which I mean, you're dealing with the big dogs.
Yeah, I get that, but you can
Yeah.
you can tell where the big dog's going, can't you? They leave a trail. They're not
So-
all hidden.
And I think you're right about that, in the sense that you can't move $1.8 million, $8 billion, like instantaneously. It takes a little bit of slipping that into the market without
and I have a
people.
question. I have a question too. When
Sure.
John's not sorry. No,
Go
I
ahead.
was just. Can you? A lot of these trades are clandestine. Can you see who's buying and selling on BTC? Can you see that?
So this is
Get
why
crack-
we need a crypto trader on here. If we get a crypto trader on here, he can tell you. So that's why we need everybody on deck. If we want to do experienced trading, we need some guy to handle crypto. We need some guy handle futures.
Well,
We
like
got
here's what I'm
options
saying.
guy already. And
can
that
you
I
see
know
a
what you're saying,
stream?
but you can. But yeah, you can if you were Sam Beckman-Fried. Yeah,
Well, he's
but
running
there
the
are
exchange. I'm
tons of Sam Beckman-Fried types out there. These people are
I can
nerds.
see how
They
many-
do
how
software
many
at a high
shares.
level. Yeah, I know, but
But-
you know what? Yeah, there are people
Is it
way
public?
smart. It
I'm
doesn't
not-
need to be
I'm not being
public. It's
critical
on
of it.
chain.
I'm just asking it. I'm asking a question. So in other words, like Apple, I can see what traded.
Yep,
I can
right.
see when it traded. I can see the blocks, right? Warren Buffett.
Right,
bought
you
all
can
his
see the
stocks.
blocks.
No.
But do you know about
But
the
can
dark
you
pools,
see-
Ryan? The dark
Well,
pools. They
no.
can
Here's
trade
what I'm
over.
asking. Can you see that now? Can you see it or can't you? You can't.
Yes.
You
Yes.
can't.
You can.
Okay.
Yes.
Because regulation wise, if it's a security, you should be able to publicly see it, right?
So the thing about crypto, Ryan, it's all public. Everything's public. The problem is when you go through these centralized exchanges that Sam Beckman-Fried, all these guys did, that they're actually introducing the problem. Because actually Bitcoin, if it was pure, I can trade you to you and see it. But now you're hiding
correct.
it through Tether. You're hiding. So actually all the tricks that are happening is because crypto is becoming more like the mainstream. And now they're doing all the same games. And this is like, oh my God.
Okay.
Oh my God.
And I think that is why you'll see here in a second why I think JD Vance was selected. Why I think Peter Thiel has verified JD Vance. I'm gonna show you some of the legislation that JD Vance has put forth before being selected as Trump's VP. But before I get there, I want to show you this. And Get Crack may understand this a little bit more intuitively than everyone, but Peter Thiel made a $200 million investment in Bitcoin. That's a very big investment. He sold crypto he sold 1.8 billion. Again, a very big move before the crypto winter. So he got out before the stock Bitcoin fell. He has now made a $200 million investment in Bitcoin before the operative word, the bull run. Do I have to show you guys a chart of Bitcoin to see? Let me see if there's a chart here.
So where is he buying and selling? So you're saying he's insider trading to a degree? He knows when it's going to go up or down. Do you think?
I mean, I don't want to say. I don't want to live with
worried about losing.
Well, Ryan, John, you can explain this to him too. There's something called the halving, right? And the halving happens every 4 years. And
no, I understand that part.
Yeah, so that's where the cycles are. If you know how to track that, you can track it and coincidentally, they track pretty well with the election cycle. Was that coincidence or was that on purpose?
So I'll ask you this, Get Correct. So, and that being said, isn't this due to it's complete at some point? When is it complete? Isn't it like 20,
I don't know that part. We gotta
something?
have Rashu up here. I don't like to dig into that. He read the white paper. He keeps arguing with us. Like, I read the white paper. You did? Yeah, I didn't read the white paper either.
Oh,
I know it's only a few pages. I know it's only a few pages. I'm not gonna bother.
Look, every time I come up and trash Bitcoin, he texts me immediately. Starts sending me articles. I'm like, come on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna do that either, Brian. So that's a good question. It's kind of
I'm
bizarre
curious.
I'm curious too, because it keeps happening. At some point, it's like, what's the end game? Like,
once it stops having, then what? Right? Like, is it?
It can have forever until it's worthless. That's basically what's going on. And I'm like, what the heck? What's the incentive anymore?
But I think I think they have said there's an end game where the algorithm's complete or something. Maybe they solved pi. I don't know. They solved pi. I don't know.
Well, here's the thing I wanted to show you guys. I mentioned from Peter Thiel. I'll share this tab with you one more time. Peter Thiel sold his holdings before the 2022 crypto winter. I'm going to share that chart with you of the 2002 crypto winter. So Peter Thiel probably sold right here, somewhere in here. This is the 2002 crypto winter here.
Right when I
Now,
bought. Right when I bought it.
now I'll go back to the art. I'll go back to the
Oh,
We know who Ryan is now.
Right when I
I'll go
bought
back. I'll go back to the article again, and they'll say here, according to CoinDesk, Bitcoin has increased nearly 124% in the last 12 months. Ethereum 75%, and Peter Thiel made a $200 million investment in Bitcoin before the bull run. So let's go back to the chart again, and
and
so he sold out here, and he got back here probably right here.
Yeah.
oh,
This is the man.
Yep.
Now I'm going to show you something else because I'm not done yet. I wish I was done.
so Till is still holding. He hasn't sold yet, huh?
Well, we don't know what he's doing. We don't know what he's doing, Brave. We have no idea. But I tell you this. I tell you this much for sure, and I'm going to show you this. And these things are not coincidence. Let
How
me
did
see
they
if I
find out when he bought it and sold it? Like, is there how can you find out that he did or didn't? Is there a way to
get crack and answer that question for you guys while I'm looking.
I'm wondering.
Well, you mean that he had to file SEC filing because he had too much of it? I don't know, because if he's an institutional investor, yeah, you have to do that.
Yeah. If he's buying or selling on behalf of somebody else, he has to. Or it affects the overall value of it. So in other words, if it's 2% of all of it or whatever, you know what I mean? So
that's right. That's the specific rule. Yes.
Yeah.
And since he's buying so much of it, they're using him as an information guidance, so to speak, too.
Well, yeah, like there's a stock fund that just tracks. It's called the Pelosi Fund. Whatever, it just follows.
We're going back to that ETF again that Pirius keeps talking about.
Yeah,
and he keeps saying it's real time tracking.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Everything. By the time I hear about it, it's too late to buy it or sell it. That's for sure. So that's why I let others do it, because I'm not good at it.
So there's one more article I want to show you about JD Vance and why I think that if you're interested in Bitcoin, JD Vance is going to be the guy that I think is going to push the Bitcoin. He'll be the guy inside the Trump White House pushing Bitcoin. As you can see, that Trump has already shifted quite a bit on Bitcoin. Let me see if I can find that article. Give me 1 second. Bitcoin. Let's see. And where is it? But basically, JD Vance has introduced some policy that is very pro Bitcoin in terms of the regulation that I think that the Democrats have been floating in terms of regulating Bitcoin. He has been for more or less deregulation and getting rid of some of the requirements. I'm going to see if I can find it for you. If I can't find it, you can Google it for yourself. But I think that, again, that Donald Trump, his candidacy will be very, very Bitcoin friendly. And I think that there will be a rise in Bitcoin due to that. Let me see if I think I have the article here. Oh, and one more thing that I don't know if I mentioned this, but Donald Trump is taking campaign donations in any exchange on Coinbase, I think. And so what I'm curious to know is he holding that Bitcoin? Do you think he's holding the Bitcoin, or is he immediately converting that Bitcoin to cash? What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, he's converting.
Immediately?
He's paying for lawyers, probably. No.
Well, these are his campaign funds. You think he's holding Bitcoin?
That's hard to say. I mean, he's probably got somebody managing it that's going, hey, it's going up, it's going down. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I would think too. They would just have a manager deal with that.
Yeah.
Well, I guess my question is again, I think that if anyone is taking Bitcoin for any type of payment or anything like that, I think they are immediately converting it to cash. They're not holding Bitcoin.
Yeah, if he has debt, that has to. Yeah, correct.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, you're not holding Bitcoin. You're not going to be exposed to that. You just, in my opinion, you probably would just get rid of it. I'm looking for those two things about some of the policy that. Well, here's one thing here. and I'll maximize that one more time. JD Vance has spoken out against SEC Chair Gensler, stating that his approach to regulating crypto is the exact opposite of what it should be. The VP nominee added that Gensler unfairly involves political bias with his regulatory approach. People who have seen drafts of the Vance proposal say it would take a more industry-friendly approach than the House. He has been an advocate for Bitcoin for several years. Last month, he began drafting a bill that challenges the regulatory power that the U.S. SEC and the Commodity Futures Trading Commission have over cryptocurrency. So those are the things that I wanted to cover. And I think, again, again, you see here, as for Vance's running mate, Trump has also emerged as a crypto supporter. And that's pretty much a 180 shift in Trump's policy in regard to
Crack,
Bitcoin.
you say you have Bitcoin, right? Crack?
I through the stock mining stocks, yeah.
I see.
I don't have anything directly. Like I don't have a Coinbase or anything like that. No.
Oh, okay.
Because the miners go up way better than, and if you did options on miners like Mara, CLSK, and all that, you could be making 10,000% gains. Like because right now, you can't make those kinds of gains in the crypto world because we're not out of the crypto winter yet. We're not in the real bull run yet. So if Peter Thiel's still holding, he's really waiting, and everybody else is more degenerate. They got the Shiba Inu, the Dogecoin, the trash of the trash, and they're waiting for their time. That's not their time yet.
I got AMP, Stellar, Graph, Fetch.
Man, this guy has more crypto than I even know.
Tezos. I'm looking at what I got.
Stuff?
I'm looking at what I got. Fetch, Chills. I don't know what all it is. I don't even know what it is. I just bought a little bit of each of them.
Well, come on, Ryan. Since you're not disclosing anything, how much actual cash you got in this?
It's a couple $1,000s. It's not much money.
Oh, okay. I got you.
It's not like a lot of money. I just went and played with it, right? But overall, just so you know, I'm still down about $80. So
I'll be down.
Yeah, that's
just
fine.
on the whole thing,
Whatever.
right?
Yeah, that's fine.
It's fine.
Keep holding.
I buy at the wrong time.
I'm going to end on the topic that I know will get Brave going, and I'm going to let you go last, Brave. I read recently, I saw a headline, and I'm going to see if I can show it to you guys. Let me see if I can show it to you. And Get Crack, I'll let you go first. Yeah, I'll go to Ryan, and then I'm going to end with Be Brave. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to end with Dennis and then Be Brave to end this show. Get Crack, what do you got? Well, all of you guys, what do you think about this?
Joe Biden's chances of winning election plunge after COVID.
I think they bounce back if he survives.
Huh.
I think it's the only way they can counter the Saturday event, right? Because they can't have another a delete attempt, right?
I thought it was.
So instead, they fake he's got the B19, and when he's still alive in a month and a half, it's like he's not such an old degenerate like corpse anymore.
I thought some senators were already against him in the Democratic side, right? Some some House. They were already openly saying it. So maybe this is like they just slipped him a little vial there in his dose.
Once his numbers went down, they're now all coming out. Pelosi came out and went against him, so they're going to replace him. So I think it's bad news for Trump because another candidate. I mean, Biden's dead against Trump. That like the numbers are just hemorrhaging. And so you still got 40% of the population that's going to vote Democrat no matter what. So it depends on who they put up there, because there's some never Trumpers there. I mean, it doesn't mean Trump's going to win because Biden's going to like the chances are better that Trump loses if they get rid of Biden, honestly, Biden's going to lose against them. So they got to put somebody else in to have any chance.
Anyone else have any?
Hopefully Trump doesn't put his foot in his mouth like he tends to do. He tends to You know, he should just check out for like 4 months. Don't do anything. Don't say anything. Especially, don't do any interviews. Just hide like Biden did, and he could win. So, but the Republicans screw it up at the end most of the time.
Yeah,
so
you're right, Ryan. That's
they
right.
just give it away. So that's my point. That's my view.
Anyone else before I go to Be Brave? Denison, you had anything? Any other comments on this? You think Biden will be there in November on the ballot?
Oh, if they don't. What I can predict about American politics is that it's unpredictable, and that no matter who is going to be in the White House, it's going to be the same. The last 4 years on repeat, worse.
So yeah, I mean, I'm with Dennison on that. I mean, the markets are predictable. Politics, who cares? That's just a sideshow. I don't care about the WWE.
Yeah, so I'm at the end.
Yeah.
I'm at the George Carlin phase of politics, where I'm watching it for entertainment.
Exactly.
And I am having a blast. I mean, come on, America, are you not entertained?
Hey, the markets do better. This is proven. The markets do better when they're fighting, when they're just in gridlock and there's argument. When they're passing major legislation, the markets get nervous and go, oh, they pull back. So I like the fact they don't get along. I make more money, or my retirement does. So.
Don't markets always do real well on the first term of a Republican president?
They do well on most terms. I have charts on that actually. Maybe I'll.
Well, the Dow Jones made most of its gains through history under Democratic administrations.
That's true.
It depends on, because you have to break it down. Is president or is it the Congress?
Congress is a big part of it because the spending.
So that's why people get confused. They think presidents actually affect the market. Look at the Congress. Who is dominating?
The stats didn't clarify. The stats just said under Democratic administrations.
That's not good enough. Yeah.
I don't know. There's a good piece there. The Democratic administrations through history have always, the Dow Jones made their greatest gains. All of them were Democratic administrations, and of course, it's public spending. Come on.
Yeah.
All right, Brave, I got a question for you. Okay. I'll let you end the show with this. I'll take everyone down to kind of give you full screen here.
Okay.
Brave, you think that Biden will be the nominee, or do you think this COVID, because who's getting COVID tests today? Do you think this COVID test will be more or less how they push him out?
It is a lie.
Doesn't matter.
No, it's a lie. He does not have COVID. They're making that up. Dennison put a very good spin to it. It's going to make him look like a survivor. If he had COVID, they would be much more worried about it than they are now, and especially as old as he is. And like I said, I don't think he's got it. I don't think he's tested. They say he has. They'll lie. Everything's a lie. And I think he's going to make it to the ballot. I think he's going to make it to the as the nominee. I think. I don't know. Couldn't you picture actually where it's in a freak show of things, where he actually wins again? I mean, it doesn't seem like it, but I'll tell you, man, there's the last 4 years have solidified the liberal insanity. People don't give a shit what they're voting for anymore on the liberal side. And all they want to do is just do anything opposing to those damn Republicans. And I think there's enough people in this country right now to put Biden back in.
I think so. Hell, I think they could easily put him back in. I think the problem is that it may not be believable this time. And I think that's the problem that they're facing, is that it has to be believable. And it would, if you don't even factor in votes, but just the mindset of the people, would they believe he won again? I don't think so.
Oh, I don't think. Yeah, I don't think. Nobody. Of course, we know the last election was stolen. Do you think that, John, or do you think it was a legit election?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. If we can see it on here, yeah, I believe so.
It was stolen, right?
I think the mail-in ballots, you can't regulate that.
There was too much of a momentum that Trump had.
Here's what I will say: this to ward off the people like Stanley that said it was stolen. You can't prove that. I'll say you can't prove that it wasn't.
Yeah, oh
And,
yeah, no, it's obvious that it was
right.
because he was too popular and they didn't have the numbers. Now they've had 4 years of taking 17-year-olds and turning them into 23-year-old blue-haired idiots. They've got those numbers increased by 4 years. That's why I say the danger could come. Again, people are suffering financially because of what the corporate machine does, not because of what Biden does. But people are suffering enough that they're afraid to let loose of the government spend outs and the government handouts. Deathly afraid of it, especially of all the people that are now, since marriage is becoming destroyed institution. You got single families that are deathly afraid of losing government support, and the Republicans do nothing but talk. I wish they would change the Republicans would change their rhetoric and just if they did one thing or two things. If they said we are going to make healthcare a basic human right in this country, if the private sector cannot provide this, we are going to provide it with a with a universal healthcare system. That alone would put Republicans in a big place, and then the Republicans would also stop talking about the hard-heartedness of the public spending, trying to make people that are receiving public assistance as bums. Many people, there are bums, we all know that, but the Republicans act like the public spending is turning people into bums, and the Republicans don't understand something, man. uh, they don't, they're just talking in too hard. They're talking that tough love, that's not going
Hey,
anywhere anymore.
one last question, Brady.
Yeah.
Give me your brief synopsis of how you think the Indians have climbed the ladder of corporate America, tech, banking, in such a political. Vivek Ramaswamy, J.D. Vance's wife, Nikki Haley, on and on. How do you think they've climbed the ladder so fast, Brady?
Engineered, John.
Think
They,
so?
they did. They didn't climb anything. They were put up on each rung. Here, have another rung. Have another one. By who? The corporate white ruling establishment on this planet. They use them. I'm telling you, they use these Indians. They're mixing us all up for a reason. They don't want white resistance to the white actual power. We're the last holdout. The body of white people in this planet, in Europe, and certainly in America, we're still 60% of US citizens. They want that white power reduced dramatically. That way they don't have to listen to no pissing and moaning and whining about whiteys and this and that. They'll use whites. They'll always use us because we're very productive and we're their skin color, so they're using us as a buffer between the have-nots and the global haves. So the whites are the buffer, so they're always going to use us. But I'm telling you, they're knocking the shit out of white people on this planet because we are the only resistance to where they're taking us, and we're not even offering that much resistance. But in the end, they're taking these Indians and they're using them. They know what they're doing. These Indians are very intelligent, and as I said, John, I'm telling you, when you live in a country like India, they are they are groomed minus empathy. They don't care about human misery. You
Hmm.
can't. You can't care about human misery and be in India, or it would drive you crazy. You just look around and you know the shit is weird, it's strange. This is a human condition, and they're taking these people who can turn their backs on the suffering of humanity, and they're using them for all it's worth, and to mix up the pool of people on the planet so that there's one little bitty ruling class, and they're all white folk.
Yeah, you paint a dystopian future there, Brady.
It's not. I don't know if it's dystopian or if it's just inevitable. Inevitable is different from dystopia, and it's certainly not a utopia. I'm not speaking of that. But I'm saying where they take us may not be as horrible as where we're thinking. John,
Mm,
you a lot of times your own self say, look around you, jump in and make lemonade out of lemons.
yeah, that's true.
That's
Yeah.
what the new world is going to be about. It could very well be about that more so than ever before. And the ruling white class might leave enough crumbs that we can all get in on at least a little bit of it in a different manner, as opposed to the formula that everybody has expected and come to be spoiled with in America, where you've got the government coming in when needed and patching everything up. It's going to be a world socialism. They're going to use the collective where needed, and I don't know if I'd use the word dystopia. I'm just saying that if we're powerless, you could apply that to dystopia. But being powerless, we've been powerless for 100 years. Look how well we live.
Fair
We live
enough.
like gods, right?
Indeed.
So then
Hey,
the indication is that when we're powerless isn't the end of the world.
not the end of the world. Brave, you have to come back again. I want to talk about what I'm going to be discussing next. I think we're going to go a little bit deeper into Bitcoin again. I want to get into these Peter Thiel trades, and then I want to talk about the shorting of Donald Trump's stock. Someone placed a big, I think it was a puts trade. If you understand what a put is, if not, we'll explain it to you. But someone placed, I think, a $12 million put trade on the day that Donald Trump was attempted assassination, and they made a shitload of money. And so you may be surprised if you haven't heard about this already, um, how this all came about and who it was. We'll dig a little bit into that, and then we're also going to do the MFB Investigate show maybe tonight. Either way it goes. Thank you for joining. I wanted to do a shorter format today. We're coming in right under 2 hours, so this is perfect. Thank you.